The 1920s were the golden age of baseball. It became more popular during this time than it ever has been. Baseball was deemed the national pastime because of its popularity in this time. But what caused this spike of popularity? The decade before, baseball had lost many supporters due to a scandal in the 1919 World Series that resulted in 8 players from the Chicago White Sox being banned for life from baseball. This was known as the Black Sox scandal. After this event, former judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis was made commissioner of baseball with the intent of cleaning up the game. Also at this time, America's most famous baseball player was on the rise.
In move to clean up game, team owners in 1920 made Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis High Commissioner of National Pastime, and he brought baseball back. But Babe Ruth, too, was a big help to the commissioner with his spindle legs, beaming face, and booming bat. Even when the Bambino hit a single, thousands cheered and thousands more fought to see him play the game.
With the commonization of the radio, broadcasts increased the audience who would experience the game and follow the players. During this era, all of the Major League Baseball teams were on the east side of the country. It wasn't until 1958, when the Giants moved from New York to San Francisco, that baseball teams spread across the country. But with the radio, people in Los Angeles could hear the St. Louis Cardinals play the Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park, 3,000 miles away.
Medwick up, and it's ball one. There's a base hit of the left field, his second hit of the afternoon. Dawson goes over fast, retrieves the ball, puts it into Rosell at second base, and Joey Medwick stops at first. 2 hits out of 2 trips to the plate. Nothing spooky about the base hits that we are having on either side this afternoon. They're ringing drives to the outfield. And now we have Collins coming up. Collins, you know, is the St. Louis Cardinal first baseman, left-hand batter who has 35 home runs for the season. The pitch. It's a ball. The hook ball is high inside.
That was a recording from Game 1 of the 1934 World Series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Detroit Tigers. The radio gave the means for baseball to become so popular, but what truly brought baseball into its golden age was the legend Babe Ruth. Even today, Babe Ruth is very well known. The Babe was born as George Herman Ruth, but took on the nickname Babe after a joke that started when he signed with the minor league Baltimore Orioles at the age of 19. The Red Sox, the major league affiliates of the Orioles, noticed Ruth's skill and signed him soon after. Although Ruth led the team to 3 championships as a left-handed pitcher, his popularity did not take flight until 1919, when he was traded to the New York Yankees for $100,000, around $1.3 million in today's money. During Ruth's final season with the Red Sox, he had broken the single-season record for home runs at 29. But his first year with the Yankees, he hit 54 home runs. The next season, 59. Numbers like that had never been seen before or even imagined. He continued to hit nearly as many until 1927, when he hit 60 home runs, a record that lasted for the next 34 years. Only 4 people have ever hit more home runs. Ruth also held the record for all-time career home runs until 1978, with 714. This might be more impressive due to the fact that baseball stadiums had no regulations on the length of the outfield wall from home plate. The Polo Grounds in New York was 250 feet at each side and 487 feet at center field. Today, the average center field length is around 410 feet. However, this did not stop the Babe. His home runs were said to be still going up as they left the park. 150 feet high as it passed first base, and just floated and floated and floated, and went on forever over the fence, the parking lot, the restaurant next door, and floor box down the street.
The most exciting thing in baseball was watching Babe Ruth hit a home run. And the second most exciting thing was watching Babe Ruth strike out.
Ruth's massive swing led to massive home runs, but when he missed, it often knocked him off his feet. Ruth's strength was so far ahead of his time, it was scary to face him.
Pitchers were afraid of him. They'd lie at night, knowing that the next day they're facing Ruth, and they would toss in their sleep.
The 1927 Yankees lineup was known as Murderers Row, because they murdered every pitcher they faced. People filled the Yankee Stadium just to see this amazing team led by the Babe himself. In 1923, the first official Yankee Stadium was built for $1.3 million. It was deemed the house that Ruth built. It would be the home of the Yankees until 2008, when the second Yankee Stadium was built. Other teams benefited from Babe's popularity too. Stadiums sold out when Babe came to town. Millions of dollars went into huge, ornate stadiums. Shibe Park in Philadelphia was the first steel and concrete stadium. To the outside observer, it looked more like an opera house. The height of the legend of the Great Bambino and the epitome of his skill was the legendary called shot in the 1932 World Series against the Cubs. Babe told America, "The first pitch ball was a called strike. Well, I thought it was outside and didn't like it very much. The next pitch was another strike. Well, I didn't like that one either, so I let it go by. By that time, the Cubs dugout was going crazy. Well, I looked out to center field and I pointed and said, 'I'm going to hit the next pitch ball right past the flagpole.' Well, the good Lord must have been with me. And that's exactly where it went." There is still some debate on whether or not he truly pointed to where he hit it, or if he was pointing to something else, but the controversy behind it only adds to its legend. Babe didn't just popularize baseball with his skill for the game. He loved to go out into public and to talk with people and to sign baseballs. He even tried acting. He would never shy away from publicity. His picture was seen on the front page of newspapers across the country. Babe was a likable guy by everyone. Even his rivals loved him. In the off-season, he would travel the country. Ruth had a love for children, and he would very often visit orphanages and children's hospitals. Babe was seen as a superhuman, but was loved because he was human just like everybody else, with a very large heart. By 1935, Ruth's skills were waning, but other big names like Lou Gehrig, Ty Cobb, Rogers Hornsby, and Dizzy Dean had all come into the spotlight. Baseball was never the same again. The American love of baseball is what it is today because of the 1920s era. Babe Ruth was one of the first to be elected to the Hall of Fame. The house that Ruth built still stands in New York, along with Fenway Park in Boston, built in 1912, and Wrigley Field in Chicago, built in 1914. Babe's record of 13 straight scoreless innings as a pitcher still stands unbeaten, and his 60 home run season is still ranked 6th overall after almost 100 years. After the Babe retired, he was diagnosed with throat cancer and died August 16, 1948. Over 100,000 people attended his funeral. In honor of him, the Yankees retired the number 3. Babe Ruth was a national hero. He saved the game of baseball, and because of him, baseball became an inseparable part of American culture.